Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time, just be patient, make a statement, try to enjoy your life. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless. They don't wanna see me care. Anytime I make some progress, I can see that they compare. I think everyone's against me, maybe something in the air. Am I paranoid? I swear a void is forming and they're scared. I walk a straight path, not many can say that. I like to play fast, cross me and there's payback. You better pray that I don't see your face at any place that I go. I know you hate that. I've been doing fine, I'm not wasting any more time. I live for the fight and the climb, and I think that the pain that's deep inside is what defines. So I won't give up, I'm gonna make it to the top. I don't care what's in my way, I swear I'm never gonna stop. I could fall flat on my face and I swear I won't get back up, cause I don't deserve a thing and the road ahead is tough. They'll try to kick you while you're down. They wanna rise up while you drown. They wanna fill your head with doubt. They're silently scared that you'll figure it out. I'll make it look like I'm losing, won't bother hiding my bruises. And when they finally think you're wounded, then it's your chance to be ruthless.
All right, what is up, Utes fans? This is Joseph back with the Utah Utes Football Digest, and very good to be here with you guys tonight. I decided kind of last minute I was about to do my pregame breakdown, and I decided kind of last minute, like I was saying, to do it live instead to hang out with you guys a little bit. So I hope you guys are enjoying being here and enjoying doing this as a live stream. I'm excited to be here with you guys. I spent a good amount of time prepping for this, so we should have some fun. As you guys come into the video, please do make sure you guys like the video. Even though this is going to be a live full game breakdown, I still want you guys to drive the discussion as much as possible. So feel free to comment any questions you guys have in the chat. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. I'm going to just give you guys a hint. Next week is going to be wild. Next week is going to be so much fun. I don't want to give it away, but I'm going to be doing a fun week for you guys for the Oregon game. It should be an awesome time, and I think you guys will like it a lot. So should be a ton of fun. So real quick, before we start breaking down the numbers, I want to tell you guys something. So Utah is going toe-to-toe with Stanford this week. Stanford looks like they're about to be running into a buzzsaw. This Utah team is not only clicking really well right now with two very good games against decent opponents in Washington State and Arizona, But more than anything, Utah just matches up super well with Stanford. And honestly, I think you guys will be a little surprised with how much Stanford lacks as a team. There's a lot left on the table to be desired. I think you guys will be impressed with how Utah matches up. Should be a lot of fun for us here against Stanford. So a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and start breaking it down. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is going to be strength of schedule. So strength of schedule for both teams. Just take this into account as we break down the two teams. So Utah has the 25th hardest schedule, where Stanford has the 37th hardest schedule. So that's relatively the same. I mean, it's Utah's got a harder schedule for sure, but it's not any crazy harder. Anytime things are close, I'd give a small edge to Utah. That's how I'd look at that. It's not like Utah plays a much harder schedule, but it is a harder schedule for sure. Okay, now let's go ahead and start breaking down the different numbers. So Utah yards per game versus Stanford yards per game allowed. So you check this out. Utah is 30th in the country in yards per game, where Stanford is 115th in the country for yards per game allowed. So what does that mean? That means there is an 85 spot advantage to Utah. And not to mention they played a slightly harder schedule. So right off the bat, we'll break down how they'll get the yards in a minute. But you can see just by those numbers that Utah is big time favored against this defense when it comes to the yards, right? They should be able to rack up quite a bit of yards against this Stanford defense. So very cool there. The next thing is points per game, right? So points per game, Utah is 20th in points per game, where Stanford is 124th in points per game allowed. So basically we got a team in Utah that's very good at getting yards, really good squad against a defense that really does not do a good job of preventing yards, right? It's pretty wild, the matchup just right off the bat with those two numbers. It should give you an idea of that Utah is a significantly better offense than Stanford is a defense. Manny says, can't believe this Stanford team beat Notre Dame. Pac-12 really representing the season. Yeah, I feel like that's more of a statement about how up and down Stanford's been, or Notre Dame has been, than it is a statement about how good Stanford is. So I wouldn't stress too much about that. Okay. Now, the next thing is Utah rushing yards per game, 25th in the country. Stanford rush yards allowed, 124th in the country. And just to break it down with more detail for you guys. So Utah, like I said, 25th in rush yards per game. Let's take a look how many yards they're getting each game. Rush yards per game for Utah, 197 rush yards per game. So like I said, 25th in the country. And then Stanford is Stanford is 101st in the country, and they're I kind of broke these down a little differently. Sorry about that. So opponent rush yards per game, Stanford is 124th in the country at 224.3 yards per game. So if Stanford's letting up 224.3 yards per game, you got to think Utah is going to stretch them there. Utah is one of the better rushing offenses in the country. I know we've had our ups and downs, but when we come to play when it comes to running the ball. Last week, we had 306 rushing yards against Arizona. I definitely project a 200-plus yard rushing game for Utah, if not significantly more. I wouldn't be surprised. It should be a great day for us to run the ball. All right, now this is where it's a little more even. So Utah pass yards per game. So we are 58th in the country at throwing the ball per game. That puts us at 242 passing yards per game. And then Stanford is going to be 62nd in the country at pass yards allowed. 231.1 pass yards allowed per game for Stanford. So, a solid pass defense team, but it really kind of feels like we'll be able to run the ball so damn well that we won't need to throw. When we do use play action to throw, they should bite on it if we're racking up the yards the way that it looks like we will, right? All right, the next thing is we'll go ahead and take a look at Stanford's offense versus Utah's defense. So Utah points per game allowed is 38th in the country. So Utah's points per game allowed is 23.3. So pretty damn good. Opponents average less than 24 points a game against Utah, and that's against one of the tougher schedules in college football. For Utah, how many points per game their offense gets? They are looking at 107th in the country, and they are averaging 20.3 points per game. So our defense has a huge advantage there against this offense. That's exciting to see. Now Utah yards per game allowed, we're 52nd, whereas Stanford is coming in at 86th. So, solid. Stanford's not terrible, but well below average at actually getting yards, where Utah is pretty, slightly above average at not allowing yards. So we should have an advantage in them getting down the field and also them having struggles punching the ball in if they do get down there. So looking great for our defense. All right, now pass yards allowed. I think this is the only number where Stanford has a very slight advantage. So we're 65th in the country at pass yards per game allowed, where Stanford is 55th in the country at pass yards per game, just to give you guys an idea of what that actually looks like. So Stanford averages 247.4 yards per game, where Utah's defense averages 233.5 yards per game allowed. So we're allowing a little less than what they're doing. Looks great to me. Looks like we got a big advantage over this team. Finally, rush yards per game allowed for Utah, 56th in the country at rush yards per game allowed, where Stanford's rush yards per game is 101st. So huge advantage there. And what that looks like is opponent rush yards per game for Utah, 56, which means we let up about 143.8 rush yards per game, whereas Stanford is 101st in rushing yards per game, 114.4 yards per game. That's what that looks like. So basically, I know there was a lot of information. Utah has a big time advantage in almost every category, except Stanford might do a decent job throwing the ball against Utah. Outside of that, Utah really should smoke them in a lot of areas. I hope that kind of gives you guys an idea of what we're looking at. Honestly, I said it earlier, Utah should run through Stanford. This is right up there with the worst teams in the Pac-12. They're not like Arizona, where the defense is really bad and the offense is really good. They're bad in both sides of the ball, right? Stanford is not a good team when it comes to getting it done on offense or defense. Utah has a bunch of matchup nightmares, like how well Utah should be able to run the ball against Stanford, how much Stanford's going to struggle to run the ball against Utah. I think Utah has a bunch of big advantages, and Utah should have Stanford coming into their house and just smack them around. I feel really good about how this game looks for Utah. And on that note, let's go ahead and break down some of the PFF grades for this game. This is one I'm excited to look at. I'm looking at this live with you guys, so let's take a look. I mean, if the numbers are telling us correctly, we should see a pretty rough run defense for Stanford. Let's go ahead and start with Stanford. Boom. Let's go ahead and start with their defense. So starting with their cornerbacks, let's see how they look. I'm going to turn the music up a little just to keep it fun. If the music's too loud, you guys can let me know. All right. Boom. All right. So Pac-12, Stanford Cardinal. Boom. All right, so let's take a look here. Yeah, take a look, guys, at the corners. So obviously corners, you're not really looking for them to be great at run defense. But you look here, they obviously aren't super good run defenders basically across the board for their corners. They have the one guy, Jonathan McGill, looks pretty good. But I would say these corners is a reason they're not a terrible pass defense like the numbers showed. They don't look that bad at coverage. I mean, they got a decent group of corners there. So let's take a look at their safeties. Safeties are usually a little more, you expect them to have better run defense grades than corners do. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so that's a little more telling, right? So both of these safeties are big time struggle against the run, right? The one guy's well below average at a 60, and then Kendall Williamson, who's their really good coverage guy, is at a 46.3. And if you guys aren't too familiar with PFF grades, but a 46.3 is very bad. That's not a grade you want if you are Kendall Williamson. So far, they're guys that need to be good against the run, aren't grading out super well. Let's take a look. Ooh, geez. Okay. So linebackers, this is a trend in the Pac-12. This is something that needs to be stated, is that a lot of Pac-12 teams have a rough linebacker room. I mean, I know it's tough to get good linebackers in college, but this is 2 weeks in a row. And honestly, it's weird that the linebacker quality of linebackers lines up really well with how well the team is. Like, the worse the linebackers are, the worse the team is. Like Arizona and Stanford, very bad linebacker rooms. All right, so check it out. This guy, it's a pretty bad grade, but basically across the board, they're going to struggle to defend the run with their linebacker group. Adds up with what we were looking at. One guy's okay in coverage, but outside of that, these guys can rush the passer, but they're not meant to stop the run. That's definitely not what their strong suit is. And as you guys come into the video, please do make sure you guys like the video. It helps get it out to more Utes fans. Comment in the chat too if you guys have any questions you want me to talk about for the Stanford game. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, we are going to have a fun week for the Oregon week. I got a couple cool guests lined up, and it should be awesome to have them on and get to talk to you guys with them. All right, so take a look here. Interior defenders, again, just rough. I mean, not a good look for Stanford. Bad run defense. Not good players in general for Stanford. So it's hard to sugarcoat it with this team. The numbers there's not a lot of good. They're okay at passing the ball, and they're okay at defending the pass, but it seems like outside of that, there's a lot to be desired. So let's take a look here. Stanford, okay. All right, decent edge rushers, right? David Bailey, he can defend the run a little, good pass rusher. And then this guy's a very good pass rusher, but not very good against the run. So, their front seven is basically set up to defend the pass. You can see that pretty clearly, and it's not super surprising. The Pac-12 is a passing league a lot of the time, right? And depending on who you're playing, but it kind of makes a little sense too when you think about which team Stanford is hung in against. It's not been the teams that can run the ball really well. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at Utah's offense. So we looked at how that Stanford run defense is looking, not too great there. They should be decent at defending the pass like we talked about. Let's go ahead and check out Utah's QB. Hot damn, dude. Cam Rising, 87.3 overall grade, 82.4 pass grade, 77.3 run grade, and an 81.9 receiving grade. Bryson Barnes grading out super well also, and Nate Johnson looking fantastic. If you guys didn't get a chance to watch that Arizona game, you guys missed out. Nate Johnson is probably the future of this program. That's the direction everything's pointing in. And he had 3 carries, I believe, and 2 of them were rushing touchdowns. We were near the end zone when he got it. We were in the red zone, but still, to have that kind of trust to put in this guy, and then on top of that, for him to actually punch it in there and get it done, pretty freaking awesome, right? Solid player in Nate Johnson. But you look at those stats, even if Cam sits out, and I feel like this is a game where you would not hate the idea of Cam sitting out, right? This is not a game where you want to risk Cam if he's not feeling great. My only counter to that is if Cam's feeling pretty good, he looked a little rusty against Arizona. You do not want him looking rusty against Oregon. So if he needs the reps and he needs to get back out there and kind of shake some of the rust off, now's the game to do it. So we'll leave it up to Witt to make that decision, but I hope he does not come out looking rusty against Oregon. And obviously, we're not looking past Stanford, right? We're not looking past them, but it feels like it would take a lot for them to beat us. There's a lot going against them. So check this out, guys. It's something I think we've all been noticing, but Devon Vele killing it, but so is Money Parks. These are very good grades, a 72.6 and a 72. You really got to be happy with those. And check out Money Parks, dude. 74.7 running grade, and a 69.6 receiving grade. very solid in both categories. Devon Vele still killing it. I mean, it's awesome to see that we kind of got our receiver group. And then you look at this, dude. So some of these are a little boosted because they have very little snaps, right? Kind of cool to see Jaquindon Jackson doing so well at wide receiver. I don't really remember him lined up at wide receiver, but maybe they're talking about when he's a running back. Who knows? The other guy is Jalen Dixon, right? He doesn't have quite as many snaps as Money Parks, but it's not that far behind, and he's grading out super well. He was a guy that I was really impressed with last week. I thought he really showed up, kept making plays every time the ball was in his hands. He had the rushing touchdown, which was awesome. So good to see, good to see. And you could tell we were throughout this season, we weren't sure what we were doing at receiver and we just started loading guys up and giving them opportunities. So Solomon Enos is our lowest graded receiver on this team. I think that's clear when you watch the games. Not hating on the guy. It seems like he's a fan favorite, a guy a lot of people like, and when they meet him, he's an awesome guy. He's not cutting the mustard right now. I don't know how long they're going to keep trying that experiment out. Oh, anyone see that? The sparkling water hit me in the eye. All right, so next group is going to be running backs. Let's take a look at running backs. Bam, boom. Okay, Utah. All right, so check it out. Tavion grading out really well. He's not getting a lot of carries, though, right? Last week, he started to finally get some carries. Now, I've got a bold prediction with this. So, one, Jalen Glover and Jaquindon Jackson. Yeah, so they don't even have Jaquindon Jackson here. Kind of a sad note for PFF. If anyone works for PFF watching this, Jaquindon Jackson does not play wide receiver. I don't know why he's listed there. But anyway, so Jalen Glover's questionable, and so is Jaquindon Jackson. And you know what that means? That means Mekhi Bernard and Tavion Thomas. This could be the game where you see Tavion go off. And how awesome would that be, considering that the Stanford game last year was when Tavion went off. So that would be pretty cool. Oh, looks like I missed the comment. Oh, Capisi. Like to get your thoughts on Van Fillinger going down for the year when you get to the end. Oh, okay. All right, well, I'll wait till I talk about the end. Remind me, PC, but I will talk about Van Fillinger going down. Sad to see. But, hopefully it's back to what we were saying. That'd be awesome to see Tavion go out here and just have a statement game. This team's really bad at stopping the run, and Tavion feels like he's in for a game. On top of all that, this was the game where he just went nuts last year, so that'd be really cool to see. Hopefully that kind of works itself out. It feels like Tavion is on the other end of, the issues, and things are getting better. So Dalton Kincaid's still killing it. No confirmation on whether or not he's going to be playing. Logan Kendall, though, grading out higher than Brent Keithy was grading before he got injured. That's a pretty cool look, dude. You take a look at Logan Kendall, that's 79 run block grade, guys. That's like elite run block grade. And I think that's clear. I mean, if you guys were following Logan Kendall before he became a part of this team, you guys would know that this is his thing. I mean, he's got the ability to lower his shoulder a little bit when it's needed, but he's grading out. Pass blocking is really good too. So awesome to see, dude. I was a big Logan Kendall fan. You guys know the Rhino was a big-time fan favorite when he got picked up. So awesome. Hopefully he continues that. Thomas Yasmin, struggling a bit, 63.5, so a little below average. I mean, he doesn't fumble that big play he got the other against Arizona. That grade probably looks a little different. It's kind of weird with him. He's so athletic. He says Logan forced a fumble on Yaz too. Whoops. Yeah, that Logan kind of forced the fumble, but that's not on Logan. I feel like that's on Yasmin. It's weird. He's so athletic and so talented. It's just the drops and the fumble. You just wish he could put it all together. I wouldn't be surprised to see him really start to get things going in the next game or two. As we get into the bowl season and conference championship time, I wouldn't be surprised to see Yasmin kind of become a star. It feels like he has all the potential in the world. He needs to fine tune the football stuff. And sometimes that takes a long time. That's, easier said than done. So let's go to Utah center, Paul Miley. Ooh, struggling. So Johnny Maea is the guy that filled in for Paul Miley, and he's actually not doing too bad. And what you love is that run block grade, a 71.1. right? 71.1. I mean, we've been waiting for good run blocking all season with this Utah offensive line. So that's a really positive thing to see. And let's go ahead and move on to the guards. Let's take a look here. So the guards for Utah, bam. All right, Pac-12, Utah. Okay, so Keaton Bill is continuing to grade out really well. That is awesome. Awesome to see for Keaton Bills. He's really become, one of the better guards in the Pac-12, if not the country. A 72.9 grade against a top 30 schedule for Utah. Pass blocking 75.4. That's a very good grade. And at run block 68.9, well above average. Awesome to see. You can't ask for much more. Jaron Kump continues to struggle there. Michael Mokafisi continues to struggle. Tanoa Togiai, really good pass blocker, below average run blocker. I mean, hopefully they figure out what's going on there. You don't love that we're this deep in the season and the offensive line still having some struggles. Last game was a very good game for the offensive line, though, so I'm not going to harp on them. I mean, they seem to be getting there, right? They seem to be right about to push the edge. Now, I know Braden Daniels was actually a PFF Player of the Week last week in college football, so that's pretty awesome. 68.6 grade overall, 77.4 pass block grade, 61.5 run block grade. Braden Daniels is very good. I expected a lot more from him this season, but it's hard to complain when you see those grades, right? Definitely not bad. Okay, so we take a look here. Satoa Lomea, 56.1 grade, kind of rough in both categories. That grade has gone up a little bit. He had some real struggles. It must have been a decent game against Arizona, but I'm still a fan of the opinion that you move him into guard. I mean, you guys saw the grades at guard. We have a huge gap there that needs to be filled. So, but I do like the idea of putting one of these other tackles in. I mean, they're both grading out very well. Small number of snaps, but still grading out very well. You don't hate the idea of seeing them get some more playing time. All right, so now let's go ahead and move on to the defense for Utah now. And before we get into that, guys, please do make sure you guys like the video. It helps get it out to more Utes fans. Also, make sure you guys comment in the chat. Good to have you here. Zenis says, heyo, man. Good to have you here. And if you haven't already, please do make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Next week is going to be a fun week. If you guys have not already subscribed, please make sure you do. It is going to be pretty awesome. I'm trying to line up a lot for you guys, so we just have an awesome week of breaking down the Oregon game. I mean, damn, that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so now cornerbacks. So Clark Phillips continuing to do really well, and the grade did go down just a tiny bit this past week, I believe. But don't forget, guys, he was playing against some elite receivers for Arizona, and he really limited what they were able to do. So that is really cool to see. I mean, his grade to still be that high after some of the guys he's had to go against all season. I would imagine a lot of these guys with higher grades than him have not played quite the talent that Clark Phillips has played. Zamaya Vaughn, oh my gosh, that is so great, dude. 74.6. We feel like we really have our cornerback too, right? This guy's awesome. Very good coverage grade, 78.2. Not great against the run, but is that really what you want from your corners? I mean, you want them to be good run defenders, but you need the coverage. Like, the run defense is a bonus. Coverage is what's absolutely needed. Capisi says Broughton was the MVP for the defense. Passes defended, he was all over. Yeah, great game, but great game by him against a very good receiving core. And Broughton, up and down with him. He had some good plays. I think that Arizona team did struggle. I'm not going to take it away from him. Good game for Broughton. I just, it's been a lot of wanting more from Broughton throughout the whole year, and you really don't want the up and down he's had out of your cornerbacks. But I'm glad he's doing well. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad to see he's doing well. Right? Not something I'm going to spend too much time on. All right, so now let's go ahead and move to Pac-12, Utah. Okay, so safety play. This has been, kind of just a solid, consistent group for Utah. Their grades have never been as high as we'd like, but really above average, good players. Cole Bishop, decent run defense with a 66, but a really good pass rush grade to 90.3. I mean, I'm sure you guys noticed that, him getting back there, pressuring quarterbacks all the damn time, right? 34 pass rush snaps for Cole Bishop. RJ Hubert, a little bit of the opposite, right? It's very bad against the run. I'm not sure why that is still there. I've seen him make a lot of open field tackles. Doesn't make sense to me. Below average pass rush grade, but it's one snap and he's not a pass rusher. But elite coverage grade from a safety is so important, guys. 79.3. That should be awesome. And don't forget, this team's good at throwing the ball, and we have very good safeties and very good corners, so should work out just fine. Capisi says Isbell had a lot of tackles, but it was concerning because the front seven started slow. Yeah, I feel the same way, Capisi. I was at the game, first game of the season for me, so very cool. Good to be there. Very cold. I'm sure you guys that were at the game know that. It was a very cold game. So I'm sure this Stanford game might be even colder. What was really cool, though, if you guys were at the game, is when they started playing that song, it was like, can you feel the rain coming down? Dude, it was a cool moment. It was I think that's what the song says, but I'm not positive. It was just a really cool moment. If you guys were there, it was pretty awesome. It was like they knew people might want to leave because of the rain, and they just started playing it. It was cool. But anyway, so about the front seven, yeah, they definitely had their struggles, right? Definitely wasn't the best game for them early. They picked it up and started clicking as the game went on, but it was concerning, right? I don't understand it with our defense sometimes. Why are we playing so well at times and so poorly other times? And it's not like this team is a great running team, and they ran the ball all over us. They had better running backs than people gave them credit for, but is what it is. I don't want to get too dragged down. The other guy I do want to talk about is Sione Vaki with the safeties. He's playing more a little bit of a nickel role. But he looks awesome, dude. A 73.2 grade, 75.2 against the run, 71.9 in coverage. Super athletic guy, big time playmaker. I would expect him to continue to get better as the season progresses, as he gets more snaps. But he's a beast. So that's a really good DB group we have. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at linebackers. So Zenith says, you may have already covered this earlier, but what do you think will be the situation with Kincaid? So I haven't heard anything about whether Kincaid's good to go or not. My thought would be, though, we don't need Kincaid in this game, right? Like, I don't think we're worried about any rust with Kincaid. He's a beast. I'd say sit him straight up. Even if he's 85%, sit him. I mean, he's 100% playing, but I don't think we need Kincaid to win this game. We are significantly better than Stanford. It's not worth the risk. That's how I'd look at that. Okay, so now linebackers. Let's go ahead and take a look at linebackers for Utah. All right. Okay, so linebackers for Utah. Lander Barton leading the linebacker room. That is cool to see, dude. Lander, I talked about this in the offseason, how Lander might not kill it right out the gate, but he'll be a solid, good starter as we hit the middle to later part of the season. And, this is when you get in the 70, I'd say that's a good grade. Right? It's not like amazing, but it's like a very dependable, good player. And 68.2 run defense, so above average there. Pass rush 66.9, so just slightly above average there. 68.1 coverage, so above average there. I mean, a guy that just has no weaknesses is really what you want, especially at linebacker. Karine Reed, his grade's been dropping lately, huh? Have you guys noticed that? And I talked about this, right? You wanted consistency out of this guy, and it's sad to see him have a couple poorly graded games in a row. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him flash soon. And if there's any time to flash, it's going to be next week against Oregon, dude. If this guy wants to go out there and make some plays, sometimes, the best players show up in the biggest games. The biggest players in the biggest games. It's kind of how it happens sometimes. Mahmoud Diabate, another guy up and down, right? Very good against the run this year, which is not what we were expecting. Is what it is, though. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and move to interior defenders for Utah. And speaking of this defensive line, just while I'm on it, we could have had a really good game against Arizona, which we did, obviously. But I just felt like this D line, just it could have been just a little better, right? It was like, damn, like we would do the contain on the quarterback, and then we'd over pursue or something, and he'd be out there, just hanging out. But take a look at this guy, dude, Samode Peppa. This guy has been straight killing it. An okay pass rush grade, but an 80.4 run defense grade. This guy came out of freaking nowhere and just has been a stud for Utah, huh? I mean, I have been thoroughly impressed. He's a redshirt freshman, man. I wasn't even familiar with this guy before the season. So good for him, dude. Run defense 80.4. That's an elite run defense grade, guys. And that's not off a tiny number of snaps. I mean, this guy got 142 snaps so far on the season. Really cool to see. Lanky Boy says, what up, bro? What up, bro? Good to have you back. And if you guys are just getting into the chat, it seems like a bunch of you guys just got in here. Please do make sure you guys like the video, comment in the chat. Good to have you guys here. And please do subscribe to the channel. I'm promising you guys next week for the Oregon week is going to be a fun time. If you guys are haven't subscribed yet, please do. You're going to be missing out if you don't. It should be a really fun time. All right. So Vamahi got a sack last week. I'm surprised that grade's not a little higher, but, he's been playing a lot this season and hasn't been killing it. Junior Tafuna, right? Solid, above average run defense, below average pass rush. It's not like he gets knocked a lot for that 61 coverage grade, but it is what it is. Lanky Boy says, I really hope we can beat Oregon. So do I, man. It's a big game. I feel like going out here and making a statement, a big-time statement against this Stanford team would go a long way. This is a team that really has no business hanging in there with us, and I think we have absolutely every possibility there is to really just light up the scoreboard, same way we did last year against this team. Okay, so now we're going to move to the edge defenders. I know that Capisi had asked that I comment on Van Fillinger as we move into the edge defenders. So, sad to see Van Fillinger out. He was really starting to look good, right? A kind of a disappointing start to the season for the guy, but, he was really starting to look good, and sad to see. I mean, this grade was all the way down to a 51, I think, a couple weeks ago. So for it to be all the way up to a 64.7, I mean, that means he's averaging like 75 to 80 PFF grades each week since then. Capisi said, what did you think of O'Toole's chase down and TD saving push out? To be honest with you, I don't know if I really noticed O'Toole too much. It sounds familiar, but I'm not going to, I'm just going to be honest. I don't remember that exact play, man. Sorry about that. All right. And so this guy has been a stud for us, Gabe Reed, right? Just week in and week out, just a playmaker. Sucks Van Fillinger's out, but this is the rotational guy with Van Fillinger, and Gabe Reed has been a beast. Nothing short of consistent and a playmaker. You take a look, dude, above average run defense, very good, borderline elite pass rush. And if he needs to cover someone, he can, right? Played 10 snaps in coverage already. Not too shabby. Jonah Ellis, another very good player, 72.6 grade. Very good run defense, 76.4. Needs to work on that pass rush, but another guy played 17 coverage snaps and an 84.9. I know that doesn't seem like a crazy big deal, but when you have edge rushers that are good in coverage, not just okay, but like good, that's a big deal. That means you can really trick opponents, right? Like they think edge rushers are just going to come off the edge and try to attack them. But that's really not how it's going to work. It's like, all right, you're going to have to keep an eye on both guys and see if they come in or if they drop back, because you don't know what we're doing. So that's pretty cool to see. Pretty cool to see. And then with that, Mickey Sugataraga, I mean, it's just a solid, Connor O'Toole and Mickey Sugataraga, a little below average, but not bad, right? Like, I mean, you got to love that you got a solid group of guys that you can kind of just bring in and out of the game, right? Let's see what kind of music we're feeling right now, dude. You know what you guys think. All right, that's better. Okay. Capisi, it was the edge contain long rush. Utah gave up early. O'Toole ran the whole field and got the running back. That does sound familiar. Not positive though. So, All right, so the next group we're going to look at is going to be the offense for Stanford. So I'm going to guess, there's a lot made out about this Tanner McKee guy, but I got to imagine the hype's died down a little bit. He's got a good grade, 73.2, but to give you guys some perspective, Nate Johnson, Bryson Barnes, and Cam Rising all have a significantly higher grade than that. So not that I think he's a chump, a 75.3 pass grade. I mean, there's a reason they're a decent pass team, but I'm not scared of him, if that makes sense. All right, now let's move to the wide receivers for this crew. So Pac-12, wide receivers, Stanford, bam. Okay, so Michael Wilson, 74.5. So they have one very good receiver and then 3 average to below average receivers. What I like about this, right, it sets us up to do exactly what we want. We put Clark Phillips on the one good receiver. Zamaya Vaughn feels like he could lock down the next guy. And then we kind of, rotate in and out who covers the other two. You take away their best weapons, especially with the quarterback, they struggle to, find a groove. So definitely not stressing about that wide receiver core against our DB group. I actually feel a little better once I actually looked at that. So, okay, so running backs for Stanford, not exactly a great running back, bad receiver, and above average runner, but nothing crazy, right? That's not exactly like a wildly good number. So is what it is there. I mean, this team isn't really going to try to run the ball, but what I like to know from looking at that is that it doesn't look like the running backs is much of a receiving threat either, which is great for us. So let's take a look at Stanford. Bam. So Stanford tight ends, Benjamin Urasek, above average receiver, but kind of little, you want more from him in other areas. Definitely not blocking tight ends, more receiving threat tight ends. And this guy just pretty rough across the board. So, yeah, not too scared of the tight ends. All right, centers. Let's take a look at their centers. All right, Stanford. Okay, bam. All right, wow, that's a really good center. Really good pass block and elite run block. That is a really good center. Okay, that could give us some troubles there, but, they don't seem to really want to run the ball that much, so that's a good sign. But let's take a look at the rest of this O-line. Okay, so not so great. So we should be able to get pressure against these guys. Average run blocker, below average run blocker, below average pass block, and this guy's got a very bad pass block. That's the thing about a good offensive line, right? Not that you need them all to be great, but you need them all to be decent, right? You can't have like one spot that's a liability. You just want a well-rounded group where no one is a liability, and that'll make a good offensive line. One really good guy with not good guys around him doesn't help. You know what's funny? I mean, you look at these grades, their tackles, they're pretty good tackles, right? But they're run blockers, right? They don't pass block very well. And with that, like, why are they not running more? If they have a decent running back, I mean, it's just weird that they're not running more. I don't know what to say there. Maybe it's because their defense puts them behind in games a lot because of how easy it is to run on them. Who knows? Oh, so that's their whole offense. Okay, cool. All right, so that was the PFF grades for both teams. So real quick, let's go ahead and recap for those of you guys that are just getting in. Strength of schedule for both teams: Utah 25th in the country, Stanford 37th. Utah yards per game is going to be 30th in the country, where Stanford's yards per game is going to be 115th. That's a huge discrepancy, right? 85 spots. This is pretty wild. Not to mention Utah's played a harder strength of schedule. So when you look at that, you got to think Utah is going to put up a ton of yards. I mean, let me look real quick. What are the opponent yards per game for Stanford is 455.4. And when you look at that and then you add on the fact that Utah's really good at yards per game, I'm going to go ahead and say this is very likely going to be a 500-yard game for the Utah team. It really is. I mean, look at those numbers. I don't see how you can argue with that, right? I'm not sure exactly how it's going to happen. I'll touch on that a little bit. And then you look at this, right? Okay, we got a comment. 115, it's like Zona 2.0. Yeah, Capizzi says 115, it's like Zona 2.0. Yeah, and it's like Arizona had the offense, right? Stanford doesn't. Stanford doesn't have this high-powered offense that Arizona had. So then we look at Utah points per game, 20th in the country. So we average 34.8 points per game. So basically 35 points per game, where Stanford points allowed per game is 110th at 34 points per game. So this is a porous defense. Not only are they letting up a ton of yards, they're also not defending the red zone very well. So, you look at that. I mean, Stanford's averaging 34 yards or points per game allowed. You got to think we're going to do better than that. I mean, we average as a team 34.8, and this is a bad defense. So that should make you feel confident there. The next thing is rush yards. So Utah is 25th in rushing yards at 197 yards per game, where opponent rushing yards per game allowed by Stanford is 124th in the country at 224.3 yards per game. So I don't really see a lot of scenarios where we don't get 250 rushing yards against these guys, right? Lengy Boy says, so I haven't seen Devin Kafusi out there. What's up with that? Not sure, man. I don't have any detail on that. And then, so where was I? Okay. So the next thing is Utah pass yards. So this is where it's a little more even, right? Our pass yards per game is 242, 58th in the country. And their pass yards allowed per game is 62nd in the country at 231.1. So they definitely let up a good amount of pass yards per game. And we do a good job passing the ball. Who knows? KS says, nothing like having dinner while I listen to football talk with fellow Utes fans. Heck yeah, dude. Good to have you here, KS. Enjoy the football talk. Enjoy your dinner. Let us know what you're eating, man. Let us know what you got going. So this seems to be the only area where Utah and Stanford are even close, is in our pass offense against their pass defense, and their pass offense against our pass defense. They should do okay in those two categories, but I'm thinking that they'll do so poorly in the other categories that it'll catch up. So Utah points per game allowed is 23.3, 38th in the country, so just under 24 points per game, where Stanford, their points per game that their offense puts up is 107th at 20.3. So you got to think our defense is going to allow less points than that. I mean, it really feels pretty wild how much better we are than this. I don't know about you guys. I don't keep track of every Pac-12 team like analytically before we play them, right? Usually I do a deep dive like this before we play them. But I'm a little surprised at how bad Stanford is. I didn't think they were good. I thought they were a low average team, but they're pretty bad, honestly. TJ Builder says, I really hope that Tavion breaks out and proves what he's capable of against Stanford. He needs a good game to get him going again. Yeah, I touched on this earlier, man. How poetic would it be that the huge game last year for Tavion was that Stanford game? I think he had 4 or 5 touchdowns, some crap like that. If he were to follow it up with, a very disappointing season, and then he were to just straight kill it, that would be wild. Robert Hull says, I hope our guys aren't watching this podcast. I would really hate to see them think all they need to do is show up and they have a W. Well, Robert, I call it as I see it. I don't think they should think they just need to show up and have a W, but appreciate your commentary. So with that, let's move to the next group. Utah yards per game allowed versus Stanford yards per game. So we take a look at Utah's yards per game allowed. Steven Surreal says, watching live. Hey, good to have you here, Steven. Thanks for coming in, man. Capisi says, Utah could win with Barnes, honestly. Yo, dude, we look at those PFF grades. I think we could win with Barnes or Nate Johnson, bro. Whoever we want to put in there. I think you keep Nate Johnson out to save the red shirt, right? I don't think they're burning his red shirt. I think they're going to find a way to keep him off the field. All right, and then okay, so yards per game. So Utah yards per game allowed, it's a slightly above average, 377.3 yards per game, 52nd in the country, where Stanford yards per game is, boom, they're 86th at 361.8 yards per game. So I do see them doing a little less than that against Utah. I feel like that's kind of how it's going to work. Capici says Nate Johnson can sit for Colorado. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want him to play unless he absolutely has to. I like the idea of. I actually don't hate the idea of getting him snaps against Colorado if you really think about it. Because I mean, if we don't play him this week and we don't play him against Oregon, we probably feel very good about how we look against Colorado. We put Nate Johnson and Bryson Barnes in there, let Cam rest, and then it's conference championship time for Cam. Lanky Boy says, yeah, Tavion better play because we don't have that many running backs now that Jalen Glover got injured last game. Yeah, I think there's a lot in the direction of Tavion having a big game. If you guys are excited about the game this week and you guys are enjoying the video, kind of doing the live stream here, please make sure you guys do like the video. It'll help get it out to more Utes fans. Also, comment in the chat any questions you guys have. Seriously, I really enjoy this being a fan-driven discussion, so comment in the chat. And also, if you guys haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'm telling you guys, next week against Oregon is going to be sick. I think you guys will appreciate it a lot. I'm going to keep a lot of content coming for you guys, so please do make sure you guys subscribe. It's going to be a really fun week, and I'm excited to kind of spend a little extra time with you guys next week. That's the game. That Oregon game is the game. I got some cool guests lined up that I think you guys will appreciate. Daxton Arnold says, and JJ too. Yeah, I think both of them could be out, right? JJ and Jalen Glover. And if they are, man, it's Tavion time. It's time for the Tavion the Tank Engine. So it's about that time. I think Tavion's playing, and not only do I think he's playing, I think this is the perfect game for him to go out there and just light it up and just give us so much damn momentum headed into Oregon. Oh man, dude, I'm stoked. Obviously, like Robert Hull said, we don't want to look past them. Hopefully the team's not looking past them, but this the Oregon game's a big one, dude. That's a big one. Okay, so Utah pass yards allowed. Utah is 65th in the country at 233.5 pass yards per game allowed, where Stanford, a decent passing team, they're 55th in the country at 247.4. So the total there, you expect them to have a decent passing game, right? I think we'll slow them down a little, but I think with how rough they are against the run and how well we should do stopping their run, I don't think we're going to have to sell out to stop the run, right? And I think we'll be able to spend a little more of our attention and concern against the pass. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him have struggles there. Honestly, I see us. I'll kind of do the full breakdown for you guys here in a second. I'm going to tell you guys my prediction. I think I see this game going a very specific way. Bryce says, the depth of our Utes makes me excited for the future. I am with you, Bryce. The depth of this Utes team makes me so damn excited for the future. I really, if you guys follow me on Twitter at Utah Utes Ballin', also follow on Instagram and all that stuff. But if you guys follow, I posted earlier today that there were a lot of recruits at that Arizona game. I don't know if you guys have seen that on Twitter. Lots of recruits like, hey, thanks for having me out. Isaac Wilson, Zach Wilson's little brother, Kainoa Carvalho, a bunch of studs, dude. A bunch of guys that are like, pretty decent recruits out there at that Arizona game. I think it must have been a cool experience for them, right? They got to go out there and see what the elements are like for Utah. So that must have been pretty cool for them. Hopefully that'll sell them. I think we're going to see some commitments coming in the next week or so, man. I think we're going to see them coming down, especially if we go out there and smash Stanford. I'm sure we got some more recruits coming to this game, right? You get to show off just how high-powered we can be. So I'm with you. Okay, so now let's talk about rush yards allowed. So Utah rush yards allowed, 56 in the country. Let me get you that exact number. Boom. Utah rush yards allowed is 143.8 yards per game, where Stanford's rush yards as a team is 101st at 114.4 yards per game. So I see them getting under 100 rushing yards and likely under 225 passing, maybe 250. So that's kind of where I'm at. So let's go ahead and talk about how this game's going to go. So one, I think it's going to be the Tavion show, right? I think we're going to see Tavion go out there, pound that damn rock, dude, just like Stanford last year. He's going to pound the rock. He's going to earn the job back. He's going to get it done, make a big statement for the Utes, win us some recruits. Honestly, bold prediction, but I see this rushing game, just to bring it back up for you guys as I talk about it, we're 25th in the country at rushing, and they're 124th at rush yards allowed. We should beat the crap out of these guys when it comes to the run game. I'm expecting 5-7 yards a pop, straight up. That's bold, but I'm just expecting that. That's kind of like the standard against these guys. So I see us going out there, hammering the rock, getting it done. They didn't seem to have even PFF grade wise anyone that can really stop the run. So I see us getting that done, right? 250, 300 rushing yards this game. You know, we're going to pass when we have to, but we're not going to need to pass. Capici says, let's go. Great breakdown. 49-9, Utes senior night. Heck yeah, dude. Thank you. Greg, thanks, dude. $10 super chat from Greg. Go Utes, baby. Beat the tree. Greg, dude, you were too generous with these super chats, and you never give me something to talk about, bro. I would love, if there's anything you want me to talk about, man, drop it in the chat. I would love to spend some time on it. But yeah, go Utes, baby. Beat the tree. It's a generous guy there, Greg, dude. Always with the super chat. And if you guys, you know, if you can do a super chat, that's awesome. But if you can't, no big deal. I do appreciate you guys liking the video, though. It goes a long way, and it helps get it out to more people. So let's pull that back up real quick. So rush yards per game, we should go out there, lay the smackdown on these guys, right? Just rack up the rushing yards, 250, 300 yards. I wouldn't be surprised if this was even more significant than the rushing yards against Arizona. I know we ran for 306 yards, but still, I wouldn't be shocked at all if we racked up even more rushing yards against Stanford. I think they're really going to have a bad time stopping this run. It feels like our run game's clicking, and I just think they're going to struggle. Okay, now our pass yards per game so I think we're going to even out about there, right? We'll probably do something in the 200-yard range. Greg says, nothing to add, man. Love the breakdowns. Best Utes analysis channel out there. Hey, thank you so much, Greg, dude. You got to come on the channel sometime, dude. I would love to have you on, man. Please come on sometime. Greg's a cool dude, man. All right, and then with that, let's move into so about even there. So I've seen about 200, 175 to 225, right in that 200 range for Utah. Should be pretty cool there. And I think we're gonna rack up points. I mean, I think it's gonna be a bad game for Stanford. All right, so Utah points per game allowed, very low. Stanford's points per game is very low. I'm just going to kind of break it down, guys. We're going to run the ball all over them, right? We're going to run the ball all over them. We're going to pass when we have to, and we're going to do it pretty effectively, right? And we're going to get some play action, that sort of deal, and then a couple third down key plays by the quarterback, whoever that is, right? And as the game goes on, we're going to just be able to pound the rock because we'll get a big lead, and we'll just beat them into submission, milk the clock. I see this game big time for the Utes. I think this is big and bold, but I really see that this game going that way. I think 44-17. I think we win this game 44-17. I think it could get wilder than that, but I don't like to predict wild outcomes, right? But 44-17 is my prediction. I see the Utes winning big time. We should be able to just pound the rock on them. Should work. TJ Builders is pretty excited for Saturday. It's Tavion time. Also, his special teams tackle last week was pretty cool. It was pretty cool, dude. And you know what I'm going to do for you guys? If anyone does want to hop on the channel, I'm going to post the link in the chat. I would love to have any of you guys on for a little video chat if you guys do want to hop on. CA Massaro says Utah running Utes 52 versus Stanford Cardinals 0. Final score, go Utes. Yeah, that'd be pretty dope. I wouldn't be mad about that, right? Greg says 49-12. We give up another garbage time safety. I could see that happening. I mean, yeah, when you get up that big, that's kind of where I see 44-17, right? Probably like you guys know that Arizona game was 45-10. It wasn't 45-20. Like that's what the final score is. That like we pulled our starters, we put in the backups. Tyquan Gilmore drops that punt that goes for a safety, and then they score again right after the safety. I mean, he catches that punt, we just run the clock out, the game's over. So it is what it is. And like I said, guys, I dropped the thing in the chat. If you guys do want to hop on, do a little video chat with me here, that'd be pretty cool. Make sure if you guys haven't already, like the video and follow me on Twitter at Utah Utes Balling. I think just like I provide you guys content here on Twitter, I do a lot of content on, YouTube. I do a lot of content on Twitter and Instagram and all that. Lanky Boy says 52-24 Utah. That seems very realistic to me. Very similar to my score, right? Just a little higher scoring. I don't think they're going to score that many points on us, Lanky Boy. I really don't, right? This team averages 20 points a game, and our defense is one of the better points per game defenses in the country. So I just don't see them scoring 24 points. And I think once we get up, unless we just pull everybody and we're putting backups in, I think we're just going to run this clock out. Capisi says that Gilmore is a special teams mistake I can live with. I'd rather not live with it. I'd rather be living without that happening, but I feel you. I feel you, Capisi. Kevin Sanchez, 49-13 Utah. Okay, so you guys are with me, right? You guys are with me. This just feels like a big win. And I'm sure this game made you guys feel even more confident about this being a big win. Oh, we got Greg Hawkins on the live stream. What is up, Greg? How you doing, man?
Yo, how you doing?
I'm doing well,
Can
man.
you see
How's
me?
the night going for you? We can see you. Yep, you're on
It's
the screen.
going good. Go Utes, baby.
Go Utes, baby. Greg, any specific questions you have? Any comments you have about the game?
Well, I was maybe one. I'm kind of wondering, what do you think of what you saw out of Tavion Thomas yesterday or over the weekend? And also, because I came in maybe a little late. I'm not sure if you already talked about it, but I'm curious to see what you think of the running game since it's so much improved. What do you expect coming into Stanford, and do you think that'll carry over to Oregon?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I really dive deep into the teams when we play them, right? So I haven't done enough research on Stanford's defense to tell you yes or no on that one. But I really think against Stanford, we're gonna do a really good job. I think Tavion's about to have a breakout game, Greg. I think that's what's about to happen. I think he killed it against Arizona. He's been on the sidelines. I think they put him in his place a little bit. They were like, hey, dude, you're not bigger than the team. It's time to chill out. It's time to, get your head straight. And we can't have you be a liability. We need you to settle down as we get into the later part of the season. I think he really learned his lesson. I mean, in my experience with football, I don't ever remember something like this happening, right? You have this star player, guy that could have elected to go to the draft last year and be I can't imagine that he wouldn't have been drafted. I mean, or like right off the bat undrafted, someone signs him. And it's like, so he elects to come back here. And then when he elects, he has an attitude issue from what I understand, and they pull him and he's just sitting multiple games. I mean, this feels like we're about to see the ending to a really cool story with Tavion. Like, hopefully it's a cool ending, right? Hopefully it's like he comes back and just starts smashing it. But I really hope we can use this game to build a ton of momentum, Greg, and carry that into Oregon and just, rip the beaks off him. That's what I'm thinking.
One thing that I really like about where our team is headed was when we started the season, you saw a lot of this. It was a lot of Cam to our tight ends, right? We saw a lot of Cam to Keithy, a lot of Cam to Kincaid. And although it was really, really effective, I feel like teams were starting to figure out how to scheme around it a little bit. And then when our defense wasn't holding up their end of the deal, it made it even more difficult. But what I really love with Witt's teams is how they progress throughout the year. You never see a team just stay stagnant from, week 2 to week 10. You see consistent progress, especially in the weaker parts of the team. They really, really usually make a lot of progress. We're seeing so many more targets now to those wide receivers. We're seeing people like Jaquindon Jackson just totally tearing it up.
Who would
I'm
have guessed
super
that worked
stoked. I
out as
think this
well as it
offense has a
did? Huh?
lot of wrinkles that we can add. Oh yeah, man. I think this offense has a lot of give in it still. There's a lot of wrinkles we can still add in the scheme. And the defense, man, in the last 2 games, it's been so much better.
I know it is. It is pleasantly surprising how well this defense has done. That was I think it's not talked about a lot. Excuse me. It's a sparkling water, but it hasn't been talked about a lot because they didn't do a good job. Arizona didn't do a lot when they played us. That was a really good offense. Like we shut the number 2 passing team in the country to 231 yards. They killed it, dude. I couldn't say better things about them. And like you talked about, the team doesn't stagnate. They progress over time, right? And last year, I think a great example of that was the offensive line. Yep. Like, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of last year, it was really struggle city for that offensive line. And just game by game, Nick Ford started to play better. Bam Olaseni started to play better. Like the whole group just became a very good O-line. And over time became the best O-line in the Pac-12, in my opinion, last year by the time it was over.
Yeah, Jim Harding is the man. Nick Ford was looking rough to start that year, and he ended up looking fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
hey,
thanks for letting me join your stream, brother.
Hey, thanks so much, Greg. I'll drop you off, man. But anytime you want, man, more than happy to have you on. It was awesome getting to meet you. Have a good one, Greg. All right, guys. Go Utes. Greg just threw up to you. Go Utes. And if anyone else does want to jump on, the link is in the chat there. I'd be more than happy to have you guys on. It is awesome to find. It's cool. Like a lot of you guys are in the chat every week, like Greg. It's awesome to see someone like meet you guys for the first time. It's a cool experience. CKS says, I have been quite optimistic with the Ute D the last 2.5 games. Still a couple spots worry me, but feeling they are good to go this week and even better next week against the Ducks. I'm with you, CKS. I think that Ducks run game is going to test our defense, dude. We all know, like, our defense isn't ranking bad in run defense overall. But the issue is it's been up and down at times. Like UCLA ran it on will at us, right? Then we had games like Arizona State and like what's the other team? But games where we just really don't let them run at all. And that makes that average look good. The issue is some good teams have really ran on us like crazy, like Florida and UCLA. So you don't love that, but either way, I do think this defense is different, right? Kind of what Greg was talking about the offense last year, where we developed on the O-line. And we obviously have developed a lot at spreading the ball around this year. I feel like it's the opposite this year, where it's the defense. The defense was such a liability at the beginning of this year, and they slowly have just become a very, very good group. And it's a group that I just really don't mind relying on when we have to. It feels good. It feels like a long time ago that we were really frustrated with this defense. And if you guys are enjoying the video, please do make sure you guys like the video. It lets me know you guys appreciate the content. It helps get it out to more Utes fans. Also, comment in the chat, guys. I like this to be a fan-driven show, and I love to hear what you guys have to say. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the freaking channel, dude. Next week is going to be a heck of a time against Oregon. I'm going to be putting out live streams like you guys have never seen. It's going to feel like freaking conference championship week, because that's basically what it is, and it should be an awesome time. Many pieces. I saw Isaac Wilson got his Utah offer recently. I wonder if we'll be able to land the 4-star. I did see that as well. I mentioned that earlier. That'd be a big get. That'd be a big get. Isaac Wilson's a big deal. I don't know too much about the film, but he is a 4-star. Zach Wilson's little brother. I'm sure the arm talent's there, right? So that'd be a big get. CM Massaro says Tavion and Charles Vincent starting. The other running backs need rest for Oregon. 1-2 punch, power and speed equals touchdown. Well, I wouldn't even say the other running backs need rest for Oregon. Don't forget, my understanding is that the reason Tavion's not playing is some internal problems in the locker room, right? It's not that he's not healthy. And so if he goes out there and makes a statement and becomes the man again, and he's been humble, dude. I feel like Tavion, the lesson he learned these past 4 or 3 to 5 weeks, however long it's been, that's a lesson that's going to stick with him for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? Like, if you act like that and you're a star running back and they bench you for multiple games, I mean, that's got to humble you, dude. That's got to change your perspective a little bit. So that's pretty cool to see. Manny says Utah 42, Stanford 10. Wouldn't shock me, man. Wouldn't shock me. Kevin says, not Utah related, but what do you predict the top 6 for the CFP looks like tomorrow? So I'll just touch on this real quick. So the undefeated teams, right? Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, and TCU. I think TCU is a heck of a team, dude. They kind of remind me of Utah, right? Like a team that you don't think is just going to run through everybody, but they just do. They're just tough as nails. And then right after that, I see Tennessee, and then 6. I don't know. It's tough. I kind of want to say, who would it be? Let me actually look for a second. Because I don't want to give you guys an uninformed opinion. So, I mean, 6. I mean, heck, dude. Why not Oregon? I think Oregon's 6. Now that I look at it, yeah, you got Tennessee and then Oregon. That's how I look at that. Yeah, it's Kevin. Same guess as you, man. Oregon. Steven said we were finally kicking touchbacks. Oh, dude, I thought it was hilarious when I was at the game that we kicked the touchback and the whole crowd went wild. If anyone else was there, you guys probably know what I'm talking about. The whole crowd just went wild when we kicked the touchback. It was pretty funny. It was on the opening kickoff, and the crowd went freaking nuts. Manny P says, where does Utah rank tomorrow? Hopefully we move up. Well, I would say we're going to be 13, like same as what we are in the AP. It matters right now, but guys, the truth is we're not going to the college football playoff. If I'm not saying there's 0% chance, but that's not the goal right now. And if you guys are hoping for that, I'm sorry to burst the bubble there. It's just not the goal right now. I don't think a 2-loss team has ever been to the playoff, and not to mention the Pac-12 has a bit of bias against it. So consider all that, and that should tell you we're not going to the playoff. Even with really big wins, I don't think we're going, which isn't the way college football should be. It's just the way it is. CKS says, I'm really liking Isbell. Yeah, man, I loved Isbell. When I watched his tape, you guys know I made the recruiting video on him, and he's just a hard-hitting, tough son of a gun. His name was brought up a lot against Arizona, and it was awesome to see him kind of, get in there and get it done. It was pretty cool. KS says, anyone else wonder how our defense would be if we had guys similar to Nate Orchard and Hunter Dimmick pressuring the QB while we have the current secondary in CP3? Yeah, I don't think we have bad pass rushers, KS. I mean, you go look at Gabe Reed. He grades out really well, dude. He's a good player, so I wouldn't say we have bad pass rush, right? I think our number one issue is the contain. I don't think we contain quarterbacks well. And you can see that they did it a lot against Arizona. Good schemed contain, right? They have the edge rusher crash in and the D tackle break out and try to contain the quarterback, but we just don't do a great job at it. I think it's a constant struggle for every team in college football, but I feel like us really as a team, we could do a lot better. Yeah, so with that, and like I said, guys, it should be a really fun game. It should be a great time for us Utah fans. Final game of the season at home, and we should be able to go in there just jab the crap out of these guys with up the gut runs. Jalen Dixon probably breaks 30, 40 yards. It'll be a fun exercise. Before we get out of here, why don't we talk about stat predictions? Would you guys like that? If you guys want stat predictions, like the video, and I'm gonna give you guys some stat predictions. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So stat predictions, and you guys can drop in the comments if there's a specific player you want to hear stat predictions on. And anyone that's predicted to be injured, I will leave them out of the stat predictions. So first, let's talk about Cam Rising. So there's no guarantee Cam's playing, but I could see with Cam doing like getting him in there, but then if we get up early by 2-3 touchdowns, pull him, right? Especially if it's the run game really working. So Kevin says Jaquinton Jackson. Kevin, I'm not going to touch on Jaquinton because I think there's a good chance he doesn't play. Okay. KS says RJ Hubert. Let's talk about RJ Hubert, dude. He's a beast. RJ Hubert, straight monster. I see maybe 4 or 5 tackles and 1 pass deflection, right? Solid game. A guy like him, he's a free safety. Like, you don't want him making a lot of tackles. This is a really bad thing. So, 4 tackles and a pass deflection, just him making those nice, solid open field tackles. We've come to love him for. Steven says we should continue to go wild after every touchback. Special teams was such an issue earlier this season. I'm with you. It was really fun. But Cam Rising, guys. So I got Cam Rising going for 205 yards. Let's say that's on, 17 pass attempts. Not a lot, right? I think we're going to throw them. We have to. But we're just going to try to break these guys mentally with the run game. They're not good against it. So we're just going to try to break them down. So I see us just doing that. Cam Rising 205, 13 completions on, or let's say 15 completions on 17. It's a little high. 15 completions on 19 attempts, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. And I don't want him to run a lot, but I could see 30 rushing yards. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Cam doesn't play. I think it's a game you don't need Cam, but it's kind of tough. Do you really want to bank on that? So. All right, CP3 over under 1 interception. Oh, always, dude. We're going to be up big on this team. They are going to take shots. CP3 definitely gets a pick in this game. I'd actually say more than that. What's an interesting question is the team over under 2 interceptions. I think that's a better question. I'd actually or over under 1.5. So do they get 2 or more interceptions? So I'm going to go ahead and say that we get 2+ interceptions against Tanner McKee. He's not a bad decision maker, but once it becomes desperation time and he has to take those shots, you got to take the shots. And I think this defense is going to really make you pay for it. And let's talk. So boom, next guy. Let's talk Devon Vele. So again, we're not going to throw a ton. I can see Devon Vele maybe 55 yards. Maybe he's the guy that catches the touchdown. Who knows? Let's talk. The guy I think would be a fun one to say what is his stat line is, Tavion Thomas. That's the guy I feel like we're all wondering about, right? So for me, Tavion Thomas, it's going to be a big game, dude. It's going to be a very big game for Tavion. I see him getting 27 carries. Let me do the math and tell you what these exact numbers are. So say 27 carries. I think that's real, dude. I think we're going to run the ball a lot. And I think he's our bell cow this game. So 27 carries. And let's say he gets 5.3 yards per carry. So 143 yards rushing for Tavion. And I'm going to say 2 touchdowns. He comes out and has that game, which I really believe can happen. The season changes for him, right? He's back to being that guy. And I feel like had he been more of our bell cow against Arizona, it could have been just nuts, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. Outside of that guys, I am going to bounce on out of here, but this should be a really fun week for Utah. Steven says, well, we did throw all those deep bombs for no apparent reason in the opening of the game. Yeah, those were weird. And I feel like they put Cam off his rhythm. But I am out of here, guys. Make sure you guys like the video. Let me know you guys appreciate doing the live game breakdown. Also, comment whether it's after the video or during. I always appreciate it. Greg says, go Utes. Kevin says, thank you. Have a good night. You too, Kevin. And then make sure you guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys later. Should be a fun weekend. And seriously, guys, next week, clear your evening schedule. We're going to do a lot of live streams. I'm out of here. Go Utes.